Hello and welcome to this episode of CEOtraining.com. In this episode, we're going to provide you with 15 tips on leveraging Elance.com for your business. Whether you have one person on your team or more than 20, it's a really valuable tool that you can use to grow your business more quickly. Now, Elance.com is basically a place where you can post projects online and people from all over the world can come and apply to complete the projects. You can evaluate them based on their references, the feedback they've gotten from other people, and how much they're bidding for a project or per hour. And the thing I like about Elance is that you can travel to obviously other places outside your country if you're in Europe or the United States and try to hire people who have great skills and education, maybe less than they would cost in America or Europe. But then you spend all this money on plane tickets, and how do you know if you can trust them? How do you know if they're going to complete the work? Elance.com makes it very low risk. Behind me, I'm actually in Singapore right now. Behind me you can see the islands of Malaysia. 3 or 4 hours south is actually the Philippines. And lots of people from India and in these countries apply for jobs on Elance.com. And they're very well educated with college degrees and master degrees. But you might get them for 20 or 30% less than you could in America or in Europe. And Elance.com lets you access these people at a very affordable rate, and you can get a lot more done on your team without hiring full-time expensive employees to your team. So what I'm going to do now is provide you with 15 tips on using Elance.com more effectively. First tip is make sure that you have examples of what you want done. When you give somebody a project, make sure you show them this is the ideal outcome that I want at the end of the day, so please aim for this outcome. Super important, it seems obvious, but I didn't do this until just recently, so always do that, always have an example. Another tip is to always have very focused projects. If you have 4 projects to get done, make those 4 different projects on Elance.com. Sure, you might award 2 of them to the same person, but chances are, if you post 4 different projects, you're going to get people who apply for each of those that have very specific skills that match those projects very well. Or one of them maybe takes less education and skill, so it can be done at $12 an hour, while the others take somebody with more experience and skill and cost maybe $20 or $30 an hour. So you should always post your projects separately and keep them very focused. Another tip, make sure you have step-by-step instructions. You should have a 20-step process, a 10-step process, something that people can follow step-by-step so they can complete your project accurately, whether it's 1 time through or 20 times through. There should be steps they follow to complete the project. Another tip, make sure that you're only working with experts. When you're reviewing the projects, if you don't get enough people who are applying, invite more people to apply to your projects, or repost it and say that you'll pay more per hour or more per project. Last month, there was over 40,000 jobs posted to Elance.com, so there is a lot of competition to attract people to your listing. But what I found is that every time I post something, if I am offering a reasonable level of compensation, that I get tons of applications, usually a dozen or 2 dozen applications for the job, and I have tons of skilled workers to choose from to help me get the work done. Another tip, try to delegate everything in your business. Take the approach of everything can be delegated, and you'll naturally have to pull back from that and do a few things yourself. But what I've found is that if you don't take that approach, you'll naturally hold everything close, not trust other people with the work, and your business will grow very slowly. But if you take the mindset of, I'm going to delegate every single thing on my to-do list, and just find a way to delegate 50% of it or all of it, what will happen is that you will end up delegating a ton of it, and the things that really are at the core of what you need to keep your hands on will naturally raise to the top, and those 2 or 3 things you can continue doing yourself. Just take that mindset and that attitude of delegating everything. Another tip is to use Elance.com to prevent further tax documentation. Oftentimes, especially in the United States, if you hire someone full-time, you have to deal with W-2s. If they're part-time, you have to deal with 1099 paperwork. Elance.com handles some of that paperwork for you, and oftentimes by using Elance, you can avoid hiring an extra W-2 employee or full-time employee or 2. Another tip, make sure that when you're working with people on Elance.com that you predict what problems they're going to run into. What could be confusing about your directions, what's confusing about what you want done. Make sure you try to predict those ahead of time, because sometimes it can be very confusing if your industry uses a certain term or lingo that maybe isn't standard in business or standard for people in your industry. Make sure you have that described very clearly within the job description and the job instructions after you've hired somebody. I've got just a few more tips here. I know this video is dragging on a little bit longer than most of ours, but I really want to share everything I've learned about using Elance.com. The last 3 tips are: 1, touch base weekly if you have long-term projects. If you don't touch base all the time, sometimes people on Elance.com get distracted by new projects or by their full-time job. So touch base with people weekly, and then they'll do a better job, more consistent work on your project. The second thing is that you should reward people for loyalty. After they've done one great project with you, invite that person to bid on your next project so that they can see that you appreciate the work that they did. And what you do eventually is have a ton of contacts on elance.com that are familiar with you. They trust that you're going to pay them. They trust that you're professional to work with. They trust that you're going to give them projects that challenge them and help them grow their own skill sets. And the final tip is that you should remember the rule of the more by Jeffrey Gitomer. The more, and he came up with this kind of saying in one of his books called The Little Red Book of Selling. And basically it goes with any part of your business or life. The more that you learn to delegate, the more that you can leverage elance.com. The more that you can learn to set up focused projects that have step-by-step processes and examples, then the more money you're going to make in the business. The faster that you can move towards your challenges and overcome any barriers you have and launch those products or services that you need to launch, then the faster you're going to make more money. You're going to learn, make mistakes, learn more, and implement those ideas. So just remember all of those things I just mentioned about using elance.com. But then at the end of the day, just learn from all your experiences, and the more that you reinvest in getting better at using this tool, the more that you're going to benefit in your business. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to leverage elance.com within your business. It's one of the most valuable services that I've used in growing my own business, and that's why I wanted to share it with you here today. We'll see you again soon.